The base was a 3-liter diesel V6, developing 258 horsepower. In 2013, its power was reduced to 249 horsepower, allowing it to fit into a more comfortable transport tax. The petrol range opens with a 3-liter 6-cylinder biturbo with a return of 333 horsepower. Next in ascending order is the 4.7-liter turbocharged V8 petrol. It was offered in 2 boost options, 365 horsepower and 435 horsepower. After restyling, they limited themselves to one option with increased power, which increased to 455 horsepower. 3.0 M276, GL 400/GLS 400. The most common ailment is premature wear of the timing clutch. It often starts to make noise after 100 to 120,000 kilometers, delaying repairs leads to wear on the camshaft, significantly increasing the already considerable cost of repairs. During operation, you also have to deal with a malfunction of the boost control valve. 4.7 M278, GL 450, GL 500/GLS 500. The main known problem is scuffing on the cylinder walls. It is noteworthy that the disease is typical primarily for engines operating for a long time at idle. Therefore, it is extremely important to update your engine oil more often, especially during regular use in urban environments. Since March 2015, Mercedes has abandoned aluminum silicon coating on the cylinder mirrors in favor of conventional cast iron liners, and the problem has been solved. Cases of timing chain stretching occurred after 200,000 kilometers. Noise after startup. The defect is typical for M276, GL 400, and M278, GL 450 and GL 500, assembled before the second half of 2013. The reason is the weakening of the timing chain due to a drop in oil pressure in the tensioners. Subsequently, the gas distribution couplings, tensioners and check valves were finalized. 5.5 M157. The top GL63 AMG was equipped with a 5.5-liter gasoline biturbo V8 with a return of 557 horsepower. After restyling, the power of the AMG GLS 63 increased to 583 horsepower. M157 is prone to scuffing on the cylinder walls, which is accompanied by an oil burner. And after 100,000 kilometers, the timing chain may stretch. 3.0 OM642, GL 350/GLS 350D. After 100 to 150,000 kilometers, the leaked heat exchanger has to be resealed. By 150 to 200,000 kilometers, the USR valve is often clogged with soot. Branch pipes of air ducts and pressurization channels can leak after 150 to 200,000 kilometers. At the same time, the plastic intake duct, the so-called seagull, may burst. It comes with an airflow sensor. The airflow sensor itself may also fail. Fortunately, third-party sensors are commercially available. Turbocharger malfunctions sometimes occur after 150 to 200,000 kilometers. The washers under the fuel injectors have to be updated after 200,000 kilometers. The nozzles themselves are quite durable. Isolated cases of turbo diesel overhaul were observed after 200 to 250,000 kilometers of run. Diesel versions received a BlueTech exhaust after-treatment system. It assumes the presence of a selective catalytic converter with AdBlue urea injection. For this, a tank with a volume of 36 liters is provided. Urea consumption is about 1 liter per 1,000 kilometers. Unfortunately, the components of the BlueTech system often fail, heaters and NOx sensors, and the system itself sometimes gives false error messages. Having got drunk, many owners turn off BlueTech programmatically. All Mercedes GL engines are mated to the second generation 7G Tronic plus 7-speed automatic transmission. After restyling, a 9-speed automatic 9G Tronic was installed in the GLS. Both boxes do not cause serious complaints and do not require the attention of repair specialists yet. Failure cases are rare. The only remark, shocks when switching. As a rule, when switching between first and second gears. Fortunately, this feature is not a harbinger of an imminent repair. The AMG versions were mated to a 7-speed speed shift plus 7G tronic automatic with automatic dual-clutch disengagement when downshifting. The permanent 4MATIC all-wheel drive distributes traction in a ratio of 40:60. The optional on- and off-road package includes 6 transmission modes and a differential lock. No serious questions have yet arisen regarding the components of the all-wheel drive system. After 150 to 200,000 kilometers, the owners had to update the transfer case seals. One of the reasons is a clogged breather. There are also isolated cases of stretching of the Razdaka chain that occurred in the range of 150 to 200,000 kilometers. There is no spring suspension. All Mercedes X166 were equipped with air. It allows you to increase the ground clearance from 216 to 306 mm. Optional ADS adaptive shock absorbers and hydraulically controlled active stabilizers were offered. The pneumatic elements of the front axle are much more durable than the rear ones due to their protection. The rear cylinders are not covered by anything. They often fail after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. After 150 to 200,000 kilometers, sometimes the air suspension compressor also failed. Front suspension silent blocks can withstand over 100 to 150,000 kilometers. The ball joints of the front wheels reach 150 to 200,000 kilometers. They are replaced only as an assembly with levers. The rear suspension silent blocks are quite durable. The rear shock absorbers could knock or leak after 50 to 100,000 kilometers. Front shock absorbers usually serve more than 100 to 150,000 kilometers, often they begin to knock with the advent of cold weather. As it warms up, the noise disappears. The front and rear anti-roll bars are assembled with glued-in bushings. The design does not imply replacement of bushings. Bushings may wear out after 150 to 200,000 kilometers. Craftsmen know how to select and change bushings. True, over time, non-original bushings often begin to creak, and the front stabilizer begins to wander and hit the suspension arms. Masters have to come up with a stopper. Bearings usually serve more than 150 to 200,000 kilometers. The steering of the Mercedes X166 uses a ZF electromechanical power steering. Parts of the Mercedes GL are subject to a recall for the replacement of aluminum steering rack mounting bolts. They collapse or stick. The anthers of the outer CV joints of the front axle shafts could leak after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. Untimely detection of a defect led to premature wear of the CV joint. After severe frosts, the owners of the Mercedes GL often notice the appearance of cracks on the lacquered wood inserts. In wet weather, sometimes the direction indicators do not turn on or are strange, and an error is displayed along the way. Sometimes the windshield wipers also mope. The culprit is the steering column switch block. Often it is enough to clean the conductive paths on the board from dust. After 100 to 150,000 kilometers, it is necessary to repair the radar sensors of the blind spot monitoring system. They are located at the bottom of the front and rear bumpers, 2 front and 2 rear. Due to moisture ingress, the board oxidizes. Sometimes sensors can be revived after soldering. Supports of power units have to be updated after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. The generator can declare itself after 150 to 200,000 kilometers. Usually it is possible to get off with the replacement of the voltage regulator, brushes, collector, and bearings. A little later, the headlight control unit fails. It happens that standard door closers also fail. With age, poorly protected wiring located outside the body sometimes frays and rots. Due to this shortcoming, the owners were faced with interruptions in the operation of the air suspension, adjustable shock absorbers, automatic or dead zone monitoring system. There were also errors in the airbags. It is worth mentioning the silica gel in the coolant reservoir. It is designed to filter antifreeze. With age, the container, bag, with the contents is torn, and the silica gel is carried around the system, clogging the stove radiator. At times, dead zone radar sensors, mirror elements of exterior mirrors and a distronic radar become the prey of criminal hunters for quick money. It's better not to throw the Mercedes X166 anywhere. A used Mercedes GL/GLS will require significant upkeep over time. A definite plus is the absence of serious problems with the transmission. As for engines, pre-styling versions of the GL with a 4.7-liter gasoline V8, GL 450 and GL 500, prone to scuffing, should be avoided.